It is time to define a detail form, which will show us the detail of our data, as well as it will be used to create new data. So let me switch back to an admin, and here select a detail view. You can see that it's currently empty, and there are no controls that we are visualizing. We can explore the list of controls that we can use when we click on this puzzle button. We can see some well-known form controls such as checkbox, an image input, or radio. But first, we need to define a layout we want to use to create our data. There are three different possibilities. There is a flex, grid, and stack layout. Stack layout allows us to simply lay out the controls horizontally or vertically. Grid allows us to specify controls in a grid-like structure, and Flux is a more advanced version of a stack layout, allowing us to do some more advanced alignments. We will explore grid in more depth later. For now, we will suffice with a stack layout. We drag and drop the stack layout into the screen, and we select it. We need to make sure that the column layer is selected because we want to lay out the data vertically, and later we'll specify gap and padding to make sure that the controls are not too close to each other. Now, there are two ways of how we can add new controls. The first one is to grab the controls themselves, for example, an input, and then we would bind the input to the desired data. So if we show, for example, we can bind this input to a person code. To bind it, we need to find a value property, and just like previously, we need to turn the square yellow, and then we can bind it to a person code. Also, we'll specify a label, code. You can see that the label is automatically visualized. The second option, which is somehow more convenient, is to directly drag and drop from the data structure. We can drag and drop either before or after a control, and what this does is that this control is automatically labeled, but the label is not so nice. We just label it as name, and it's also automatically bound to a person name. This time the control unfortunately is not initialized with the default properties, and we can see that it's not extended to full width, so we need to make this control fluid. There are many other options of these inputs, such as we can add an input label, person name, and many other things which we can do to the control. We can specify that the value is going to loading, we can set that the position is on the right, not on the left, and so on. So we can play with these properties later on. Let's also add a sex field and a title field. The sex field is probably best specified as a selection field. So let's go and find a drop-down control, and let's drag and drop it onto our form. Oops. There it is. We select it. First thing we want to make sure is that it's called selection field, so that it's rendered nicely, not just a simple drop-down. We also will make it fluid, the full width. We select it, we name it as sex, and we also need to specify properties, right? So all the way, here they are. We can find options in here, and we specify two options. We will specify male, definition is male, female. And let's put the third one, which is other. Great. Now, let's put there the last field, which is the title. We can just use our simple thing. And then let's put title again. Let's make it fluid. And let's make a nicer title. The controls are now quite stacked together. So what we'll do is we'll increase the spacing, right? And we can see that it's now very difficult to select the stack itself. So we have two options. The first one is to go to the list of controls that are there, and we can select the stack there. Or we can select stack by expanding the current selection and then clicking on stack. We can also select the two different forms which have been enveloped. All right. If we want to change the order of controls, we can just safely drag and drop them here in the outline view, and we can change the order as much as we like. So let's put it back to code, name, title, and sex. I think the sex is occupying too much space. So what I'll do is I will not make it fluid, but here I will specify a CSS property and specify width to, for example, 200 pixels. Let's make it 300. There we go. And then, sorry. So that's the outer part of the control, and then let's make it back fluid. All right. So we specify that the outer part of the control is 300 pixels, and the dropdown will occupy the full width. The last thing that I want to do is to select the stack and increase the gap small, right? So the controls are not so tight together. Let's save our configuration and let's refresh this page, and we can see that our detail form is there. We can now, for example, edit the title, new title, and add sex to a male. And then click on save, and our data have been saved to the database. Similarly, if you would go to a person and click on create, now this form is available. So you can specify code, name, title. There we go. This is one of the checks. If you remember, we specified that the name should not be shorter than 5 characters. We did it in tutorial 1. So this is the automated validation that has come to place. So let's just say it's names. And then we can click on save. Data too long for colon person code. All right. We have entered invalid data, which does not represent what the database wants. So we need to modify it. There we go. Now the record has been created, so you can see that the database checks are coming in place as well. And if we are happy with this, we can just clear the form and start creating another form. Thank you very much.